On January 23rd, 1944, the New York Rangers were trying to ride off the momentum of being on a two-game winning streak and having a dominant win over the Toronto Maple Leafs the game before. However, the Rangers had to face the Detroit Red Wings. Now, the Red Wings of today are pretty mediocre. However, they were making a comeback. But back in 1944, they were a team to be afraid of, and as a result, the Rangers would lose. But they wouldn't just lose. They would lose on a level that wasn't even common in the 1940s. The goal total by the Red Wings was comparable to a low-scoring NFL game. This was even a record the NHL hadn't seen since its third season ever in existence. This is how the worst NHL game in history had went down. First, let's give some background as it's going to be needed. The NHL in the 1943-44 season was different, to say the least. The world was in the midst of a world war, and the NHL wasn't just a little different, it was a lot different. It's a time before some of the greats such as Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Bobby Orr had even played the game. At this time, Maurice Richard, who is now known as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, was only in his second season in the NHL. Gordie Howe hadn't even played an NHL game yet, and at this point, it would still be a couple of years before he would even start his career, but I think you get the point of how long this was ago. On top of this, the amount of scoring at this time was also tremendously different. To put into perspective, you had teams scoring sometimes more than 12 goals in a game, which is absolutely unheard of in today's NHL. The league also consisted of a lot less games, with seasons only lasting 50 games in this time period. As a result, the league was a lot smaller, with it only consisting of 6 teams: the New York Rangers, Detroit Red Wings, Chicago Blackhawks, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Montreal Canadiens, and of course the Boston Bruins. That brings us to the two teams that were actually competing in this insane game: the New York Rangers and the Detroit Red Wings. The New York Rangers back in the 1943-44 season were nothing short of bad. In the 1942-43 season, they were dead last in the NHL. They had a record of 11-31-8 during the 42-43 season, and they were dead last in all categories, offensive and defensively. So it's safe to say that next season, it wasn't going to get any better. And you would be right. The Rangers did not get any better, and in fact, they actually got worse. If you can believe it, the Rangers in the 1943-44 season went 6-39-5. During this season, the Rangers had went winless for the first 15 games of the season, and 14 of those games were regulation losses. Only one game was a tie, and that was against the Montreal Canadiens. The Rangers would finally get their first win of the season against the Boston Bruins on December 12th, when they would win 6-4. However, even this game was a struggle, as in this game the Rangers went down 4-1 at one point, and they had to make a huge comeback. The Rangers had rode on this momentum and would win 3 out of their next 4 games. However, after the 4th win against the Blackhawks, they would go on a bad stretch of game, going on a 7-game losing streak and giving up 48 goals in that span. That's almost 7 goals allowed per game, which is absolutely insane, and you don't see that very often in today's NHL. But the Detroit Red Wings were the complete opposite of the New York Rangers in the beginning of the 40s. In fact, the Red Wings were coming off of a Stanley Cup winning season in which they would sweep the Boston Bruins 4-0 to win the cup in the 42-43 season. The Red Wings in that season had a 25-14-11 record to win the President's Trophy, and in the 43-44 season were looking to do the same thing and repeat. The Red Wings in 43-44 season had an okay start, going 5-3-2, but in the next 12 games of that season, they would only win 2 games in that span, which meant the Red Wings had a record of 7-11-4, which wasn't really a good look, as in this span of 12 games, the Red Wings would only score more than 2 goals twice, and the offense just wasn't clicking. This could be due to injuries, as some of the Red Wings players on the roster, who seemed to be regulars on the squad, only had 30 to 40 games played in the 50-game season. But a 5-0 win against, you guessed it, the New York Rangers would spark a nice comeback for the Red Wings, as they would go 5-0-1 in their next 6 games. This would help them look like the more dominant Red Wings they were the season before, but this all leads us to our opening, where the Red Wings riding on a 6-game win streak with no losses, and the Rangers coming in on a 2-game win streak, looking to increase the streak, would face off. Now, obviously, with the Rangers season being the disaster it was, the expectations weren't really too high for this game, and most were expecting a game where 2 teams would at least be fighting for the win. But it turned out only one team even showed up, and this was the Detroit Red Wings, as they would not put up 10 goals. They wouldn't put up 12 goals. No, they would put up 15 goals on the New York Rangers. This was 2 touchdowns and a field goal if you don't count the extra point, which is absolutely insane. Let's break down the game and what happened as a whole. So the game would begin very fast for the Red Wings, as they would come out 1-0 with a goal from Murray Armstrong just 2 minutes and 48 seconds into the game. But the Rangers would manage to keep this a pretty close first period until they would give up a goal with just 2 minutes to go in the first, where Bill Quackenbush would put up a goal to make it 2-0 Red Wings. But the second period would also be pretty close to begin, where there would be no goals for both teams until 8 minutes and 48 seconds into the second period, where Carl Lascombe would put up a power play goal to make the game a 3-0 game for the Detroit Red Wings. However, this is where the game would pretty much disappear for the Rangers, as it seemed like in a blink of an eye, in the last 11 minutes of the second period, the Rangers would give up 4 more goals from these guys. Since if I mentioned all of them, the video would probably be a lot longer. But the Rangers would be down 7-0 at the end of the second period. The Red Wings would then go on to score 8 goals in the third period to win the game 15-0. In case you were wondering what is the most goals scored in a single period, well, that record goes to the Buffalo Sabres, when they would put up a solid 9 goals in 1 period. It would be in a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs in March of 1981, where the Sabres would win that game 14-4. This 8 goals by the Red Wings in the third period would tie an NHL record for the time for the most goals in a single period, which would be 8, as the last time somebody did this was when the Montreal Canadiens did it when they played the Toronto St. Patricks all the way back in 1920. The interesting part about that game was that the Canadiens were up 8-1 in that game, but would only win the game 8-7. It was almost a great comeback for the ages, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But this 15-0 loss for the Rangers would not just end their 2-game win streak, it would pretty much define the rest of their season. The Rangers would go winless for the last 20 games of the season from that point. For the Red Wings, this would end up fueling the hot streak even further, as not only would the Red Wings increase their streak, they would do almost the same thing again to the Rangers when just 3 games later, the Red Wings would spank the Rangers 12-1, which means the Red Wings at one point in 3 games against the Rangers would outscore them 32-1 in that 3-game stretch. Not only that, but the Red Wings would notch only like a few losses in their last 20 or so games to cap off an amazing season after this win against the Rangers. And not only that, the dominance continued, as the Red Wings would win the season series 8-2 while outscoring them 67-26. This was a game that will go down in NHL history as one of, if not the most embarrassing loss in history, even for its time. But hey, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this. Don't worry, I will still upload on the Montreal Canadiens, but I sort of want to talk about other interesting topics, and just let me know what you guys want to see down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.